Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I'd get this started. Let me begin by saying Eid Shama Mubarak. It is wishing all of you a very happy New Year. You know, as we reflect on this very joyful time in the calendar, we must remember those who don't enjoy the freedoms, the human dignity, the liberty that we enjoy here in this room and in this country. We remember those in Camp Liberty who suffer and are denied basic human dignity. Our hearts are with them, our prayers are with them, and to them we say Eid Shama Mubarak. That this new year may bring to them the freedom, the equality, the peace and safety and security that they have fought for, that they yearn for, and that they more than deserve. Today, you may see senators to wish us all a happy New Year. I'd say to my colleagues up here on the podium, please excuse me if I tap you to interrupt you. We may have to take a quick break if one of the senators joins us to give us New Year's greetings. On behalf of Senator Landrieu, I should tell you she, the chairwoman of the Small Business Committee, sends Nowroz greetings and called in her letter to you all for greater civil and human rights in Iran. She was also one of the many advocates for the delisting of the MEK, and so we appreciate the letter from Senator Landrieu. You know, as we think about what's going on right now in Iran, it is quite disturbing. We hear much about Rouhani being a reformer, but we know better. Since Rouhani took office in Iran, there have been 600 executions. Of that number, just in calendar year 2014, 150 people have been executed in Iran. That really amounts to roughly 2 executions a day. There are, many of you like me have seen the very disturbing YouTube videos that are taken by those and smuggled out from Iran. The flagrant human rights abuses that continue to this day aren't much talked about in the media here or in the political process here, and it's a shame. The most fascinating thing, you know, we find ourselves right now in the United States in a time of huge political discord. It seems that politicians who sit across from each other on each side of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, can agree on almost nothing. So it makes it all the more extraordinary that when we talk about human dignity and freedom for Iran, for the residents of Camp Liberty, that is the one issue here in Washington on which there is tremendous bipartisan support. It says a lot about the facts. This is an issue on which the facts are not in dispute. The residents of Camp Liberty deserve justice, and they have been denied justice. They have been made promises by multiple secretaries of state on both sides of the aisle, presidents from both sides of the aisle, across administrations, and those are promises that have not been kept. And we happen to be privileged enough to be having lunch in a building of people, senators here in this country who are enormously powerful and influential, who can apply pressure to the administration. Before I turn the podium over, I'd say, in this new year, if we have a single wish, it is that the voices in this room are heard in the halls of this building. And it's that the senators who have supported this cause will recommit themselves in this new year to applying pressure to the administration to keep the commitments of this administration and prior administrations to the safety and security of those in Camp Liberty and to justice. When U.S. soldiers were at Camp Liberty, before it became used for those who had to depart Ashraf, there were 17,500 T-walls, along with protective gear for the soldiers who were in Camp Liberty. The commitment was to maintain the security conditions at Camp Liberty when those who were forced to leave Ashraf had to establish themselves there. When the U.S. government actually pressures the Iraqis, they permit some small incremental step, security measure, to be taken. You know, the Iraqi government has been complicit in the violence that's been visited upon liberty. Not only have they been complicit, frankly, they claim they're not involved. It is inconceivable that inside Iraq, the level of violence that's been visited upon liberty could have happened without the complicity, the active involvement and complicity of the Iraqi government. What about the September 1st attack on Ashraf? Scores were killed, and then we hear, only recently, the Iraqi government acknowledges that in a secret burial site, it buried 51 individuals. It won't say where. And you have to ask yourself, well, why would that be? Why would it be a secret place? Why would they not reveal the location? Why would they have done it without notification prior to the burial? And one can only presume that was because they wanted to prevent autopsies, they wanted to prevent documentation of torture and murder. And again, but they can and they will, again, if the people in this room put pressure on the people who work in this building, and the United States Congress on a bipartisan basis puts pressure on the administration, the Congress needs to ask the State Department and the Secretary of State, why not? Why is it that we don't apply to the horrific conditions at Liberty, what happened at Ashraf, the international standards that we apply across the world don't seem to be applied to the Iraqi government? Those who remain, what are their conditions? Well, over the last few months, Iraqi forces have not permitted septic tanks to be cleaned. They have not permitted food trucks to come in. And on many occasions, including immediately after attacks where people were injured and dying, the Iraqi medical clinic set up inside the camp, which referred those residents who were injured and dying and ill to the hospital outside the camp for treatment. Those people were stopped by Iraqi forces from getting the medical treatment they so desperately needed. So when you hear Tom Ridge and you hear General Phillips and you hear me stand up, and we are clearly angry because we feel personally misled and we feel a sense of personal responsibility. It isn't enough that the administration delisted the MEK. It won't be enough until we fulfill our commitment to their safety and security. They are not a threat, and we have an obligation. You've heard from the words spoken with passion from each of the people, each of us who have really personally committed ourselves to this issue, but now is the call to action. You've heard each speaker talking to the staffers in the room to go back to your members, but the action is not for next month or next year. The action really is today. Second, Iraq must live up to its obligation or bear the consequences of inaction on the protection of the members of Camp Liberty. The T-walls must be installed. Food, medical, and sanitation must be provided and permitted. The U.S. Congress must demand their own access to Camp Liberty on congressional delegations and the embassy's regular access, all of which puts further pressure on the Iraqi government and ensures the safety and security of the residents of Liberty. You know, this room itself is a symbol of the great strength and the great freedom of this country. Particularly today, as it's decorated for Nowroz, the beautiful orchids, the abundance of food, the sweets. As many of you know, I have a particular affinity and affection for the women who are of Ashraf, who are of Liberty. You heard Tom Ridge tell you 6 of the 7 who've been taken hostages are women. The first event I spoke to, I was here in Washington, D.C., and I spoke to the women of Camp Ashraf, and the tape was sent to them. And if you can imagine, these women were so touched by the remarks, they sent messages back, and I got a DVD. Madame Rajavi in Paris, shortly thereafter, gave me the DVD. And when she handed it to me, she warned me it might be difficult to watch. And I asked her why. And she explained to me that from the time the women made the DVD, sending me messages, till the time she'd given it to me, there had been an attack on Ashraf, and that I would recognize some of the women I had communicated with, at least one of whom had been killed and others been seriously injured. And this month of March, we just had the International Women's Day. I must tell you, this is an extraordinary group of women to whom I am completely devoted. And so there is a tape rolling in the back, and it wouldn't be an opportunity for me if I didn't say to those women that I will continue to work and pray that you enjoy the equality, the dignity, and freedom of the women in this room. And I will continue to work every day to ensure that you sit at our table and you share our freedom. Thank you for joining us.